Good afternoon, everybody. Movie review time. Seeing a lot of movies at the moment. Parasite, directed by, well, actually I can't remember his name, but Parasite. What's it like? Is it any good? Should you spend your money? Stick around and you'll find out. Now, the usual place I go and see movies is the Dulwich Picture House, and I love it. And my son Joel loves it, my wife Jane loves it. It's a really nice place to see a movie. Generally, we sit at the very back where they've got these sofa seats, they're called, so they're probably designed for courting couples, but that ain't the case with me and the wife, and no, it ain't not the case with me and my son either. But they're nice places to sit right at the back. You get a good view of the film and it's nice. Now, this time when we booked the tickets, it was fairly full, and so we ended up with seats kind of in the middle. Not too bad, you might say. They're reclining seats, very comfortable. Anyway, we then got an email saying that they'd moved it from screen 3 to screen 2, which is a bigger cinema, probably because a lot of people wanted to see it, because it's got a lot of buzz around it, Oscar bait, possibly. And they gave us these seats. So anyway, we went in and we sat down, and there was a fellow in front of me, and he was wearing a cap. A cap. A fucking cap. Now, why would you go to the cinema and wear a cap? You don't need to wear a cap. It's not cold, it's not windy, it's not raining, you're in the cinema. You don't need a cap. Anyway, I thought, well, I can see most of the screen. It's not really a problem. Except, guys, Parasite, as you may know, is a film from South Korea. The language is South Korean? No, the language is in Korean, and therefore it's got subtitles. And where is this guy's head? Right in front of the lower middle part of the screen where the subtitles are. So I spent most of the film going like that or going like that. And one of the other problems is that my glasses are varifocal. So if I'm looking at the top part of the glasses, that's where the distance is. Well, in order to see kind of over his head and down, to see the subtitles, well, I couldn't really see. So that rather, did it spoil my enjoyment? Well, I've gone on about it long enough, so in a way, yes, it did. So little point, Dulwich Picture House, why don't you say, no, you could say, well, why didn't you say to the guy, oi, tosshead, take your cap off, or even politely, excuse me, I'm an elderly gentleman, rather short in stature. I'm not short in stature actually, but sitting behind him I was rather short in stature. Eyes not too good, and when you're wearing a cap, you know, I can't see a fucking thing. So would you mind taking it off? Anyway, I should have done that, but I didn't. So, Parasite. Now, before Parasite came on, there was a, what do you call it, preview? Do you call it? No, trailer. God, language deserting me now. Trailer for Emma. And I was looking at this, and then I compared it to Parasite. And I thought, Emma, another Jane Austen adaptation, another early 19th century posh people in frocks, in country houses, with carriages and servants, and this whole Downton Abbey, Brexit, what a country we used to be, Bill Nighy, and all these characters in that kind of simpering thespian, oh, Mr. Darcy, oh, what have you done now, Mr. Darcy, oh, Miss Emma, oh, I think I'm in love with you, Miss Emma. And then Parasite comes on, and Parasite is a South Korean film. Now, let me say, right, I know quite a lot about the movies. Actually, I go and see a lot of movies, but I've got to be honest, guys, I don't know much about non-British Hollywood, non-American films. My knowledge of the wider film industry, I don't know anything about South American film, don't know anything about African film, don't know anything about Southeast Asian film, don't know anything about Middle Eastern film. I've seen, what have I seen? I've seen all Werner Herzog's films, I've seen those German films, I've seen Babette's Feast, great Danish film. I've seen a few of the Chinese and Japanese kind of sword fighting sword fighting, samurai films, but I don't know much about South Korean cinema. Gonna be honest, so if you guys know a lot more about South Korean cinema, then more kudos to you. So this came as a surprise to me. It may not be a surprise to you, it came as a surprise to me. But I thought, compared to Emma, this boring early 19th century British period drama, Parasite was a wonderful film, an original film. Maybe it was because they weren't famous actors. They may be famous in South Korea. They're not famous to me. They were talking in a language that I didn't know. I'm not very familiar with Korean, so there were subtitles except for the guy in the cap, which blocked the view. So it seemed the whole film is a startlingly original, wonderful, fascinating 2.25 hours experience. And compare that to the dreary, monochrome nightmare of The Lighthouse, the dreary First World War Oscar bait drama of 1917. It's over. The First World War is over. Stop making films about it. The South Koreans are not obsessed with the First World War. They're making films about now. They're making films about real life. They're making films about rich and poor and the gap between the haves and the have-nots. They're doing exciting things, not hello Miss Emma, oh hello Mr. Darcy, oh your carriage awaits madam, and oh look at those downstairs, upstairs, Downton Abbey, fucking Maggie Smith shit films that we're forced to sit through all the time. No, Parasite, what's it about? You want to know what it's about? Okay, there is a poor family, and through a series of events they become very closely entwined with a wealthy family. And the poor family start to almost take over what happens in the wealthy family. Now, about halfway through, the film rather changes tack, and it turns a little bit into a kind of Nightmare on Elm Street horror film. And in a way, and I'm not really criticising the film. I suppose it's a criticism in a way, but in a way I wished it stayed down the path it had gone on, and it didn't turn into this kind of Nightmare on Elm Street horror. Not so much horror fest, but there's a kind of slasher element to it. There's unpleasantness anyway. There's general unpleasantness. So I thought it was a fabulous idea. It took a slightly wrong turning for me, but it's a wrong turning that you really enjoy. Don't get me wrong. It's a great film. It's a fascinating film. There is wonderful acting. There is wonderful dialogue. The music is superb. The buildings, the depiction of Seoul. I presume it's filmed in Seoul. The depiction of Seoul is fascinating, and it's a truly original piece of work. Now, it may not be original in South Korea. It may be a story that's been done before. It's not necessarily that original of a theme, but the way it's approached by the director is startling, and you love this film. I love this film. I thought it was a piece of brilliant art, and compared to The Lighthouse, which I couldn't wait to leave, this film kept me engaged from beginning to end. So, what's it like? Well, I've just told you what it's like. Is it worth your money? Absolutely. Should you go and see it? Absolutely. Forget the dreary Lighthouse, forget Emma, forget 1917, forget the Little Women. My son saw Little Women, he thought it was really good. David Copperfield, I have no desire to go and see David Copperfield. Absolutely none in the world. I really like Amanda Iannucci, but I don't want to see David Copperfield. Parasite, go and see it. You'll love it. See you next time. And by the way, if you're wearing a cap, take it off when you go to the cinema. Thanks, guys.